I, like many, have a really hard time watching people hand over their brains to God and call it virtue, because it's not faith, it's fanaticism. I'm talking about the kind of belief that doesn't leave room for doubt, that skips the part where you think and jumps straight to obedience. It's not about peace or community, it's about control, about punishment. The kind of faith that lets you look a terrified girl in the eyes and say, "This is for your own good." That's Aunt Lydia. She's more complicated than Joseph Lawrence, more than Serena, because with them you can at least trace the selfishness. Power, guilt, survival, they're playing a game. But Lydia isn't playing, she's just fully converted. She doesn't think she's the villain, she thinks she's the shepherd. And that's what makes her dangerous. She calls abuse love, submission salvation, obedience holiness, and the worst part is, she means it. So my relationship with Aunt Lydia is messy. Do I think she's one of the most brilliantly written characters in The Handmaid's Tale? Abso-frickin-lutely. Do I think she's redeemable? We'll get to that. Hey everyone, I'm Nikanak. I make videos twice a week about everything I question and overthink, and today we're talking about Aunt Lydia, the zealot, the mother, the monster, and the maybe. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome.
Before she was Aunt Lydia, she was Miss Clements, a school teacher, someone who seemed to genuinely care about kids, especially the ones slipping through the cracks. She invited one of her students, Ryan, and his mom, Noelle, into her home, made them chili, gave them Christmas presents, tried to play the role of the helpful neighbor, the good Christian woman, and then something shifted. She thought she was building a connection with them. She thought she could get through to Noelle. She thought the principal might like her, maybe even love her. But when that didn't happen, when he pulled back, when she felt embarrassed, she retaliated.
The child is vulnerable to a corrupting influence.
She called child services on Noelle, not because she was abusive or dangerous, but because Lydia judged her. For the fast food lunches, the messy home, the dating a married man, Lydia decided she wasn't a good enough mother, and that was that. And the worst part, I believe, is that everything that we saw Aunt Lydia do was hidden behind this wall of righteousness. She said it was for the child, but really it was about control, about being right, about punishing someone for not living the way Lydia thought they should. And that moment says everything, because it's the same logic she'll use in Gilead. Same judgment, same punishment, same belief that she's the one who knows best. The show doesn't really tell us how Aunt Lydia got her power. She just shows up at the Red Center, Bible in one hand and a cattle prod in the other. And it's clear she's not part of the system, she is the system. But the Testaments give us the full story, and it's a lot darker than you might expect, because I was shocked. Lydia gets arrested during Gilead's early days. She's thrown into a stadium with a bunch of other so-called dangerous women, lawyers, judges, teachers, basically anyone who had a voice before the regime took over. They're starved, left in the cold, people are being dragged out, shot, screaming, and some just give up and die. And honestly, in this world, in this universe, dying doesn't seem like the worst option. But Lydia survives it. But not because she resists, she's offered a choice: help Gilead or die like the rest. And what does she do? She chooses survival. And then the real Lydia kicks in. She doesn't just go along with the system, she helps build it. Because this isn't someone who got brainwashed. This is someone who saw the structure being built and ran toward it. Now, a lot of the times, Aunt Lydia tells herself it's mercy, that she's being kind, that she's helping these girls adjust, that if it wasn't for her, it'd be someone worse. But let's be honest, that's not mercy, that is control.
Now you know that I do my very best to protect you. The world can be quite an ugly place.
It's power disguised as protection, and that's exactly the version of Lydia we get in the show. Let's move on to Season 1, Episode 1. Janine mouths off at the Red Center, which is Totally understandable because this is insane. And Lydia has her held down and mutilated. She brutalizes these women, then calls it love. She calls it discipline. She calls it salvation over and over and over again. And it's not just Janine. When Emily is caught in a same-sex relationship, Lydia oversees her punishment. Her partner is executed and Emily is mutilated. And Lydia, well, she tells her,
"You can still have children, of course, but things will be so much easier for you now."
To Lydia, it's not cruelty, it's obedience, and it's necessary. In that same episode, Lydia warns June,
"Remember your scripture. Blessed are the meek."
And June fires back.
"And blessed are those who suffer for the cause of righteousness."
And what does Lydia do? Well, she tases her, because that's Aunt Lydia. She'll quote scripture, and in the same breath, she'll swing her cattle prod at you. But it's not just about belief, because there's ego too, pride, and rage. Now in season 3, Lydia is humiliated in public, and she completely snaps.
Why? I just want to do God's work. I want to do it. Isn't that what you taught me? Isn't that what you all want?
Mind your tongue.
And it's not about Janine at all. It's about Lydia being disrespected, about her power being questioned, and that need for control, that deep, twisted belief that she's the one holding it all together, comes into full focus when you look at two people, Janine and June. They're her mirror opposites. Janine submits, June resists, and Lydia clings to both for very different reasons. Let's start with Janine, because to really understand Aunt Lydia, not just what she does, but how she justifies it, you have to take a look at Janine. Now, we've talked about obedience, we've talked about control, but with Janine, something else is going on. Now, when Janine first arrives at the Red Center, she's defiant, and Aunt Lydia shuts it down immediately, very publicly and very, very violently. Her eye is removed, Janine is forced to confess to being gang raped, and then Aunt Lydia claims it was her fault.
And who led them on? Whose fault was it?
And from there, Janine becomes what Lydia calls a success story. She gets pregnant, gives birth, acts grateful. She even prays for Lydia's recovery.
I'm really sorry about what happened to you. I prayed so hard when I found out for you to get better.
But here's the thing, and it's not because of loyalty or because she actually feels that way, it's because Janine is surviving this, just like every other woman. And thank you to this Reddit user, the Tragedy Machine, for pointing this out. There's a trauma response called fawning. It's when you appease your abuser to stay safe, not because you agree, but because fighting back isn't an option. That's what Janine does. She performs innocence, she plays the child, and Lydia eats it up because Lydia sees herself as a shepherd and Janine becomes her baby, fragile, needing guidance. She's not like June with her rebellion and defiance. Janine just wants to eat cake. She just wants to sing. She just wants to be loved. And that's the tragedy. Janine's submission makes Lydia feel righteous. It confirms Lydia's belief that breaking these women saves them, that her cruelty is necessary, and eventually she sees right through Aunt Lydia. She finally says what we've all been thinking.
They've raped us. You gave us to them.
That's when something in Aunt Lydia shifts, because Janine wasn't just a success story, a poster child for Gilead. She was Lydia's conscience, and now she's speaking up. And then there's June. Now, if Janine is Lydia's validation, June is her obsession. And I believe that Lydia truly envies June. June is married, Lydia is divorced, and it wasn't a really good marriage for Lydia.
I was married. It was a mistake.
June has children. Lydia never got the chance. June inspires loyalty, and Lydia expects obedience, and if she doesn't get that, well, we know what happens. Now June breaks the rules and survives. Lydia clings to them because one misstep could end her. Aunt Lydia's power is borrowed, conditional, weak at the core. June, somehow in Aunt Lydia's mind, has influence despite everything, and Lydia sees it and truly hates her for it. That's why she doesn't just want to punish June. She wants to break her, not out of duty, not because of some kind of higher power, but because of her ego, to prove that she and everything she believes in is still right. That obedience can still win. But thankfully, she can't, because June never breaks. Lydia tries to punish her multiple times, then praise her.
My dear girl.
Then guilt trip her.
Of course, if you asked them, this would not have been the path they would have chosen. But you didn't ask them, did you? Such a selfish girl.
And nothing seems to work.
Find her and bring her to me. And a frail woman will sleep better at night.
And I believe that also cracks something in Lydia, because if she can't control June, maybe Gilead doesn't work. Maybe she doesn't work. But in season 5 and 6, we see a shift. We see the consequences of everything she has done, the damage she's caused, not just to Janine, but to all of them. And it finally catches up with her. And for the first time in the entire show, she doesn't double down. She starts to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, reluctantly, and then all at once. When Janine was poisoned, Lydia, who normally keeps her feelings tightly bottled up, just breaks. She drops to her knees next to Janine's hospital bed and says,
You know she does not deserve this. I know you're unhappy with my behavior sometimes.
She's not praying for Janine per se, she's praying for herself because she knows she's the reason Janine's here. And then, for once, she acts on it. She has Janine's daughter Angela, the little girl Gilead stole from her, brought to the hospital, just so she can be near her mom. And this is the first real crack in Lydia's facade. The first time she puts care ahead of control.
I'll make sure that Angela grows up to know where she got her beautiful smile and her sweet nature.
But the real shift, the moment everything changes, happens in season 6. Now Aunt Lydia's just gotten back from DC, and she's completely out of the loop. She notices something weird at the reception, napkins stuffed under the table where the handmaids were sitting. Something's off. When she gets back to the Red Center, the Guardians are passed out at their post, and she finds the handmaids. Not sleeping, not undressed, but fully dressed and ready to move. And this is where Lydia does what she's always done. She loses it. And I remember watching this moment, and the only thing that could go through my head is like, really? After everything you've put them through, you go back to your shenanigans? Really? Well, it's not shenanigans, it's a lot more serious, but still, really? But I really do digress. She starts screaming. She calls them traitors. She has a guardian aim his gun at Aunt Phoebe. She's about to snap back into full Gilead enforcer mode. But then June shows up, and she doesn't yell, she doesn't fight, she talks to Lydia. She tells her,
No, Aunt Lydia, you did it. You trained us to be like this. After you beat us and after you mutilated us, after you tortured us.
Then Janine steps forward and backs her up.
If you want to save us,
Let us go.
And Lydia breaks. Thankfully. But this time, she doesn't pray. She doesn't explain. She walks over to Janine and she hugs her.
I'm sorry he hurt you, dear.
She tells the Guardian to lower his gun. She lets the handmaids go. All of them, even June, and then she collapses to the floor, begging God to help her because she knows it's over. The thing she's been holding on to, the idea that Gilead is righteous, that she is righteous, it's gone. This is the moment Lydia chooses, not out of fear, not out of strategy, but out of guilt, out of finally seeing the full cost of what she's done. And here's what still scares me about Aunt Lydia, that she still has power. She's still at the Red Center, she still holds rank, so now the question becomes, what does she do with that power?
Have mercy for what they've done, for they have been prisoners of wicked, godless men!
Now, out of all the characters in The Handmaid's Tale, only 2 return in the Testaments, June and Aunt Lydia. Now, at a British library event, Margaret Atwood explained why. By taking you inside Aunt Lydia's head, I wanted to try and answer, how do these people get into their positions of power? What do they use that power for? And what is their justification to themselves for why they are doing it? Margaret Atwood even mentioned reading the diaries of Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, as a way to understand how people justify participating in oppressive regimes. Because Margaret Atwood wasn't just writing a villain, she was writing a regime enabler, a woman who knows better and still helps run it. At the same event, Atwood also added, we know from history it's not unusual to have someone within a regime be hostile to that regime. Which begs the question, is Lydia loyal? Or is she staying quiet until the time is right? Now, I do believe she feels guilt, but I also know she wrote the rules. She didn't just enforce the system, she is the system. And maybe that's what makes her so dangerous, because she doesn't see herself as evil, she sees herself as a necessity. And to really hammer this idea home, one of you left a comment under my Serena video that really stuck with me, and it goes like this: I don't fear the men in the system as much as I fear the women who serve it. These women know it's wrong and they keep doing it. And now, maybe the question you wanted me to answer this whole time, do I believe she deserves redemption? I don't know. I really don't. And that is why I'm very excited to see the Testaments. Not to forgive her, but to force us to sit with the question. Because this isn't a story about good or evil, it's a story about a choice. And in the end, Lydia has always had one. And that is Aunt Lydia. A part of me is really glad to see that change and glad to know this isn't the end of her story. But another part of me thinks, so far in The Handmaid's Tale, redemption comes way too easy for her. But what do you think, dear viewer? Do you think she'll ever really change? Can someone like Lydia ever come back from what she's done? Does guilt equal redemption? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're still here, thanks for watching. And now remember, the important thing is to never stop questioning, even me. Till next time.